Meaning to do this video for some time. I just haven't got around to it, but I have some free time. List of ethnic slurs by ethnicity. I just want to show you some of these. There's another list. I didn't know there was actually two types that they actually bring up. One, I'll pull it up in just a moment, but once again, this is what bothers me when people start talking about, yo, you're a coon and you're cooning and stuff like that, because the same British people, types of British people, I'm sorry, that left England, that landed in Australia, right, seen the people that were there and called them coons. And coon is an Aborigine person, an Aboriginal person. So, I mean, I look at us here in the United States, I'm like, did we learn that from them? And is it being used out of place? Look at this, gin, like the alcohol, right? An Aboriginal woman. There were some other ones that, when you're just going down through here, caught my eye. That was like, that's interesting. Oh, look at this, buck, the deer, a doe and a buck. It was interesting to me too, because when I read that and I seen it said, a black person also used to describe a Native American. This is what bringing back to mind for me, right? When I was living in South Carolina, I met this light-skinned brother that he was an old man too. We used to go down to the parks and pick up and play ball and stuff. And he used to call all of us. He used to, you did good, young buck. This and that buck. Buck this and buck that. And never really thought it was, what did he mean by calling us young bucks all the time, And there was some other, older men in South Carolina that did the same thing, but it just never occurred to me to even ask, what the heck do you mean by buck, Only buck I know of are the Milwaukee Bucks, So when I was reading this, I was like, dang, now I wish I would have just stopped worrying about ball and would have had the common sense to ask, what is this term? So now when you hear somebody call you young man, a buck, I want you to think about that, I want you to ask them too. I want you to point this out to them. Use that, where did you learn to call us bucks, you know what I mean? So, let's see here. And we got the whole term for colored, which, I mean, that's a whole lesson that we get into. Then there's coon for US and UK, a black person. Portuguese, held for the slave sales. There's a crow, a black person, black woman. There's your eggplant. Oh, you know about that. And it's just it just focused, like they're just like their whole eye of focus was just on blacks, like when it comes to all these slurs. The whole thing from Deuteronomy 28, you're a byword amongst all the nations. Let's see here. There was another one where it was I don't want to jump out of line, but I want to get to the one about the squaw, because just like they called the young men bucks. Let me see here. I'm sorry, I'm probably too close. Can you see that from there? Let's see. Yeah. And that right there, the whole pickaninny, man, that one really burned me, because I remember as a child with my adopted parents, they called us pickaninnies, and it makes me, they had no idea that it was a racial slur. Well, I mean, now I just want to sit back and dig into where does it all go to and where does it come from. Let me see. And we know it's about Sambo. We know Sambo is a Hebrew, so that's why I find that really disturbing when it says it's a U.S. it's a derogatory term for an African American. Why would we, like that right there puts in your mind, oh, like if you don't know any better, think about it. You read that and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'm supposed to hate the word Sambo then. it's derogatory. It's just like looking up the word, nigga. You don't know any better. You never go into, no one ever told you to look up, nigga in the Oxford English Dictionary, so you don't know any better. So out of anybody else's mouth, you're gonna be like, upset, which you're rightfully so. But at the same time, you almost have a power over them. You know what I'm saying? When you know that Oxford English Dictionary says a nigga is an Indian. You know what I mean? Like then like, and that's not what they're meaning to say. But it's like I'll drag your ass in court. You know what I'm saying? And let you sit before the judge and call me a nigga, and then I'll point that out. He can identify what a nigga is, and I'll give me my indigenous rights. I want to be a part of the rights of indigenous people. I mean, think about it too. Think about how ridiculous that is. Let's just say with their crappy historical, point of view on life. Let's just say, bear with me for a moment, okay? I know I'm sounding like I'm rambling, but this is one of the things that burns me up on the inside. Okay? Their little crappy, story system that we all come out of Africa, right? And we're the closest people that resemble the first people that came out of Africa. How are we not protected under the rights of indigenous people? We are the indigenous people then. By their crappy way of explaining stuff. But here in America, you're not. You're unprotected. You see what I'm saying? Doesn't that burn you? I mean, even with their crappy lies, they're not out to look out for your well-being. They just want to destroy you. Point blank, period. The mission is to destroy you. Oh. Let's see here. A spade, a black person. I think that one is interesting. Yeah. Did I pass it? I hope I didn't pass it. Let's see here. Then they get into this whole brownie thing, which I think is stupid. But where was it? Here's another one where they calling Native Americans niggas, but that's not you. That they try to tell you, oh, that's the red man. Even though I've never seen anybody call the red man a nigga. Let me see here. And Native, not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying in my lifetime, I've never seen them do it. Let's see here. And they're a prairie grass nigga. But that's easy when you look up the whole article about the camels. What's it called? The camels from the Beast of Burden. Look up that article from the Smithsonian, and it talks about the camels were out there in the Western Plains, and then it leads you to some names that I forget the names, but it was the names that when I was reading that article, it led me to looking up stuff in was Persian human zoos and the German human zoos, and it took us to paintings of blacks, Indians with teepees and camels instead of horses that were out west, living out there. And then that whole song, The Black Rats of London, where were they when they needed them the most? They were in the west, enslaving the Indians. Here it is. Squaw, a female Native American, derives from Low East Algonquian, Massachusetts. And I'm not really familiar on how to pronounce this right here, but it says it comes from that term, which originally meant young woman, but which took a strong negative connotation in the late 20th century. I hope I read that right, and of course it's like the equal derives from a male is buck. So that's like what we read up there about the young buck, or the buck being a black man, but a native, Here it is down here, for the women, the squaw. And if you read that song that's held at the, what's it called? The University of Duke in North Carolina, what's it called? I'm a Big Fat Indian Chief, where it's a song basically this black dude has to prove that he's an Indian and not a Negro, and he does it in a song, but They take the whole court case and they make a mockery of it, him trying to prove his innocence. But he sings about out west. This is his girl. His girl's a squaw. She's out west and she's in a teepee and she listens to the coyotes at night. So yeah, we're getting somewhere. And I think the rest of these are just all. These aren't the ones I want. There's another list. I'll make a part 2 of this. Then there's a whole paddywhack thing, which I need to redo the knick-knack paddywhack because I know I did it wrong because I was doing the Micmac and I noticed I named it wrong. I called it like the Micmac paddywhack, which I knew what I was talking about because it was a conversation I had with a few people and they were pointing out the whole knick-knack paddywhack thing leads back to black people in Ireland and them having to fight with what's his name Saint Patrick because he kicked out the Nagas of Ireland, the snake people, because there are no snakes on those islands. So when you really start to have to, and that's where you got to start searching. When you start searching, what did he mean? I kicked out the snakes of Ireland. And then you start searching for the names of the snakes and stuff like that, and just that's where you're gonna start running into the word Naga a lot, and then you're gonna find out Nagas. You got 2 types of them. You got the ones that say they're Nagas from India, and they worship the cobra. And then you got Nagas that we know about being deriving from the word Niger and nigger. So and check this out. This one was funny, right? Because only places we know of. There was this place in what's it called? Africa. Guinea's in Africa. It's in what's that other place? South America and a few other places. I thought this one was a good laugh. U.S. Someone of Italian descent derives from Guinea Negro was called that because some Italians who had black complexions. And isn't that like that whole $5 Indian and stuff like that? Or what's that one, Crying Indian, where he was like trying to pass as a Native American because he could, but then they come to find out he was actually Italian and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know, that's what popped up in my mind. I thought it was hilarious. But all right, I got a part 2 to this.